Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round and round.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maggie.
I'm very excited to do these case studies. This was your idea.
Yes, I take full responsibility for this.
That was good. I liked it too. And we're going to give this a shot. So welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast. This is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out. Every week I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts and friends on a different financial topic to help you improve your financial mindset and tactics. We're not quite doing a financial topic. Well, we're doing actually lots of topics, right? So this week we've got Andrew, and he had the idea to do some case studies. We've both been doing like a little bit of coaching. So I think this is kind of fun. It's like a mini coaching session. We're going to try this out, see if you guys like it. It's basically like a more detailed listener Q&A with a, more personalized advice. And, let us know what you think of this type of episode if you get a chance. You can send us a direct message on Instagram, or you can always send us a text at 404-981-3370. But we want to hear if you like these. We should give a disclaimer, right, Andrew?
Definitely. Yeah. So just a couple quick things. The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only, and should not be considered financial advice. We recommend
it's going to sound like financial advice, but you should not consider it financial advice.
Correct. We recommend consulting with a financial advisor or professional before making any financial decisions. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Inside Out Money. Past performance is not indicative of future results. That is key. Always do your own research and due diligence. And then we are protecting all of the listeners who submitted. Thank you very much for everyone submitting some things. We've changed all the names and to protect people's identities.
Yeah. So let's jump in. We're going to try for 2 case studies in this episode. And I think
that may be tough for you, Maggie.
It could be. That's why I say we're going to try. I'm going to really focus, Andrew.
Okay.
I think I can do it. We're going to try to get 2 case studies in, and you might think like, oh, what if these aren't applicable to me? We're about to cover in these 2 case studies like a ton of financial topics that are applicable to everybody. So I really do encourage you to listen. And here we go. First case study is Shayna. She is 44, no kids, lives in Georgia with her partner.
Shout out to Georgia.
Yeah, shout out to Georgia. Annual household spending is about $60,000 a year. Her annual income is about $150,000 a year. And then let me lay out some of her net worth situation, because that was a question we asked also. She's got a overall net worth of about $2.4 million, no debt. So good for you. She's in a great position. She's got about $30,000 in cash, about $430,000 in some CDs. They're at 5%. That's certificate of deposit at 5%. They're maturing in August of next year. So think of it as like kind of like in a high yield savings
almost
account.
cash.
Yeah, almost cash. She could get to it if she had to with a little bit of a penalty. Mm-hmm. And then she's got she got $962,000, let's call it $1 million in taxable brokerage, and primarily in, looks like VTI. Is that Apple?
Yeah.
Okay.
VTI, Apple, and VOO.
Then she's got about $833,000 in her traditional 401k, all in an S&P index fund. I love it. About $27,000 in a Roth 401k, also in an S&P index fund. About $164,000 in a Roth IRA, all in VOO. And then about $3,000 in an HSA, invested in a total market index. Love all the like S&P index funds, total market index.
And I also love the diversity of accounts as well.
Yeah.
Super valuable to have amounts in lots of different buckets.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the level of detail. So thank you for giving us that. So here's kind of a little more info she shared and what she's asking us for. Because just so you guys know, when we put out a request for case studies on Instagram, and we specifically said like, what do you want to know from us? Because, there could be a lot of things we could comment about from what she just shared, but we really want to focus it on like, what do you need help with? So here's what she shared. I'm single and have been with my boyfriend for 5 years. He's 56 and financially secure, but still works. He pays for the home and I pay for utilities and groceries. So her questions for us, and this is a bit of questions / context, if you will. I've worked in corporate America for 22 years and I am beyond burnt out. I'm literally working only for a paycheck / benefits, but no longer like the job. How do I know when I have enough money to retire since my expenses will likely increase in the future? For example, I may want to buy a home a decade or so from now. What about long-term care insurance costs, unexpected major health issues, needing another car in 8 to 10 years? I don't want to feel poor once I retire. I've played around with a FI calc, but not sure how to factor in all the what ifs. Also, am I being too risky with 80% of my net worth in index funds? I've listened to the Afford Anything podcast recently, and Joe and Paula were saying that having everything in VTI or VOO isn't optimal. And this was based on like an interview she did with this guy named Paul Merriam. And so she said, I'm so confused and would love your guidance. It's probably worth noting that I don't have any children or siblings, so I could, quote, die with 0 and it'd be all right. Okay, there's like a lot of questions in here.
A lot to unpack here.
Yeah. Let's just kind of start breaking it down.
Yeah. So, I think overall, Shana is in a great spot, right? The household spending, first, she knows what she's spending. Check. Great job on that. $60K. And then her spread to her annual income of $150K. So she's got a good size shovel here. And so
did you say she's got a good size shovel?
Shovel. Yeah.
I like the way you called it a shovel. Yeah. Shana's shoveling,
If you got a big shovel, you can.
Yeah. She can pump cheddar. I just heard
dig a deep hole.
I just heard this word on a thing, pump cheddar. Anyway, she could pump a lot of cheddar with that.
So she's kept her lifestyle in check. She's clearly been doing a fantastic job saving. And to start with her very first question, could she retire? Given where her annual expenses are and given where the assets that she has, I think she is certainly at a point to be considering it. I think that overall question is yes. I think you can definitely be considering it and looking at it based off of what the assets that you have, especially with the diversity. You don't have it all. Shana doesn't have it all in 401k, where she may have to play around with figuring out how to access it before 59 and a half, things like that. So if you just look, she's got a huge cash cushion, right? So August 25, she's got this 430, call it 450K she'll have in cash. And so I love a big cash cushion for sequence of returns risk. So early on, she could, even at 60K, that cash cushion alone could last her 8 years, right?
Yeah, she's like well beyond Coast-Fi, which Coast-Fi is when you have enough that you just have enough for retirement. Yeah, you don't have to contribute to retirement anymore.
Right.
And for 44, having her retirement, her 401k account where it is, she's solid, right? That's going to grow into like millions by the time she's 60, especially the way she has it invested. And so I do think she's in a position to retire. I think you're a little more conservative than I am, Andrew, on, you're just being cautious and careful, which you should be, especially when giving other people advice of like, she's in a good position to consider it. I think she has enough, right? And one way, she had all these like what ifs, which we'll talk about in a second, but one way to think about it too, she's sitting on almost $1.5 million in like pretty liquid things between her brokerage and that cash. She's 44. She needs that money to last her essentially till she's 60, which is 16 years. If that money didn't grow at all, that would be $89,000 a year over the next 16 years. That's
and I love that math. Like
more.
I've started to think about that, right? Like, don't even think about any growth of your investment. If you simply just lived off of that, that's her bridge to 59 and a half, where she can access the 401k.
Yeah. You're really just banking on like sometime, like over the next 16 years that you'll at least not lose money in the market, which I think is a, pretty small risk, right? Like you could pretty much, count. I don't want to say count on that, but I'm counting on that. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And then when you're 60, your 59 and a half, your 401k will be accessible and it will be, multiple millions by then based on where she's at now. She'll probably have social security and other things coming in. And so my thing is like, if she sounds really unhappy and burnout, I would definitely leave that job when the timing's right. Like if you have a bonus or something coming up, maybe you kind of wait for that and then take some time to reassess. Say I'm going to take a couple years off, and you could get a part-time job. You could do something else. It doesn't mean you'll never work again. I don't think you need to think as binary as that, but you are sitting on a very nice cushion where you'll probably be totally fine to completely retire, but you also could do other things over the years and just like get out of that job if you're miserable in it.
Mm-hmm. So a couple other specific questions that she asked, maybe I'll address the piece around her index funds and whether she should consider diversifying and this research report that she mentioned. And so I'm familiar with that research that was done, and there's all kinds of research that people can pick out. You can look at different time periods, you can look at specific portfolios, and there are literally hundreds of different people who have posted that, hey, this is their preferred portfolio percentages,
their preferred mix, and it'll outperform
the mix, right, all that. And I always come back to at the end of the day, you're still trying to chase returns. If you are going down that path, because no one has ever put forth a portfolio that says, I'm actually going to underperform the market by 1%. Every single person has put forth a portfolio that says, I can beat the market. And so while this is still looked at as a diversified portfolio, and it's not all that different from a total market index, you're still trying to chase and outperform the market.
Can I clarify, Andrew, what she's referencing?
Yeah, sure.
So she said is 80% of index funds too risky. I read the same email summary. She listened to the podcast on Afford Anything. I read the email summary of Paula Pant's email subscriber list. And basically she's referencing an interview she did with a guy named Paul Merriam. He is saying that there's a specific 4-fund portfolio that has historically delivered better returns than S&P 500 with lower volatility. And he shares the magic formula, right? That makes great podcast content. To your point, Andrew, tons of people come out with stuff like this. But I also, and to be clear, like his formula is like 25% S&P 500, 25% large cap value, 25% small cap value, 25% small cap blend. Also, there's tons of funds that are considered a small cap value fund. You know what I mean? Like that's not even a perfect answer. But he claims that if you go all the way back to 1928, the volatility is lower with these 4 funds than that one, and the return is almost 2% higher. So, I mean, I also read that email before she submitted this question, which is funny. And I read it thinking, and sometimes I'll read content like that and I'm like, ooh, should I be making a change? You can't, there's always going to be something, which is kind of your point, Andrew.
Yeah.
And this is different than what you're saying. And I want you to like double click on what you're saying in a second. But my slightly less educated than Andrew's take on this is, even if I believed what Paul is saying to be accurate, that I might get an additional 1% to 2% higher, I would have to proactively manage this risk over the next, 20, 30, 40 years. Manage that portfolio mix. Manage that mix. And I would rather, like, as people say, like VTSAX and chill, or VTI and chill, right? I don't want to sit there. I almost would be like, I mean, it's, again, it's a gamble either way, right? So I'm not guaranteed anything. And like we said in the beginning, like historical returns do not necessarily mean what you're going to see in the future.
Right.
But I just think people are constantly coming out with different things. Now, you could argue the idea of total market is also one of those things. But let me ask you a question, Andrew. Yeah. You're not changing your strategy based on reading things like that.
No. And the reason why is because I'm content with getting the market returns. Yeah. And I think it is if you can wrap your head around that, if you can put your ego aside and say, I'm just okay with the market returns.
Yeah.
And I am not going to play the game of trying to chase. Yeah. And I've always found it to be it took me a long time to get there. It probably took me, decades to get to that point.
Yeah.
But once you get there, it is a very liberating concept, because you don't need to consider every single thing that will come across your email or come across any conversation you have, because you are just content with the market returns.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately where I have landed.
You and many other people.
And many other people, correct. But there will always, and people will say, well, what if everybody took that approach? Well, yeah, that would be a little bit more challenging, but there will always be people who are trying to beat the market.
Yeah.
And so the market is very efficient, and I truly believe that it will ultimately net out the best path forward is to just be content with the market returns over a long period of time. That is the key.
Yeah, I like it. And it's funny, you said the word ego of like, put your ego aside. I think for many people, I would imagine, I'm sure for some it's ego, because if they know enough, they think like, oh, I think I can do things that are, smarter and beat the market and all that. For someone like me, I wouldn't even say it's ego. I think it's actually like a lack of confidence in really knowing what the right thing is. And so I hear something like that and I'm like, oh, this Paula Pant seems to like, she's smart. This Paul Merriam guy seems to like know what he's doing. And then I'm like, oh, is this better, newer information? Then I should be adjusting my strategy. And, there was some other report that came out recently. I can't remember which big bank. And it was about, a prediction of how the market's going to do over the next 10 years. And
it's the Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
You and I exchanged some emails on that, right? Goldman Sachs put out a report that said 3%. The S&P is only
exactly,
going to grow 3%.
Yeah. And was like, we should be shifting to bonds and like more so than normal even, or than historical advice has maybe said. And I hear that and I'm like, oh, should I be doing that? And like, I actually really appreciate, Andrew, that you're always like, no, like, and again, you're saying what you're doing, which is what we're doing. But yeah, I feel it's very like liberating to just be like, no, actually I'm okay with the average returns. And I don't want to have to like think that hard about this. And I like the, diversification that comes in, where we're at now. And yeah, there's a lot of tech stocks that are arguably overvalued and there's a lot of things to consider, but I'm in it for the long term. I'm not in it even for the next few years. And so, okay, I think we answered that question.
Yeah.
Another question she had was how to factor in these what ifs. She talked about like she might want to buy a house, long-term care
$1 million
insurance,
question,
yes.
All the what ifs.
Yes. So I think I have like a whole episode where I did nothing but talk about like all the things I was afraid of going into early retirement. And one of them was all the what ifs. And right. And we've got kids. And so there's like a lot more what ifs if you throw kids and aging parents and all sorts of stuff into things. And then yourself, of course, and your partner. So my thing about the what ifs is like, make a list of them, put an estimated cost on them. So that car she mentioned, put a cost on it, like write them all out and add them up. And she had her like expenses at, right now they're at $60K a year. Let's say they're 80,000, right? That's a big chunk to increase it by 20,000, right? If her 20,000 is her new emergency fund every year for all these what ifs, and there won't be a what if every year, but one year there'll be a car, one year she decides to buy long-term care insurance, whatever it is. And again, I did the math earlier on like, if she doesn't even grow her money, she'd have almost $90,000 a year over the next 16 years. And so you start to like add up your what ifs and then be like, okay, well, let's up what I spend as an example, because maybe I will spend more in retirement. And then you realize you either will still be okay or you won't, and you need more money. But I think the best thing to do with those what ifs is like write them down and estimate them, and then include those in your future calculations and in all the, kind of 5 formulas you're running.
Yeah. And I'm also a big fan of making sure you try and knock out as many big purchases as possible while you're still working. So get that new car that you're thinking about. If your car is 15 years old and is on its last legs, don't go into retirement and then a year or two and you've got a big expense for a car. Yeah. Or get your windows replaced on your house, right? Get that water heater replaced, right? Like take care of those big things while you're still working, so you don't have some of those larger ones after you finished.
Is that partially psychological to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely it's definitely psychological.
I definitely started doing a lot of like even medical things where I was just like, I just want to be like in tip-top shape when I
tip-top shape, both your health and all the other things around you. The only thing that concerns me a little bit in her list is the house.
I thought of that. If something happens to their relationship.
Well, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking more about, the house. A house purchase is typically people's largest purchase.
Yeah.
And if she were to decide to, she didn't specify how much she was thinking about spending on the house.
Right.
And so if she said, you know what, hey, I've got $1 million in my brokerage account, I'm going to drain 750 of that and I'm going to buy a house.
Yeah.
As soon as you take 750 off the table of your income producing assets, that's a very different situation and scenario. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of the big thing that Shana should think about is, hey, if you're thinking about buying a $250K condo or townhouse on the outskirts of Atlanta where your cost of living is lower and you're going to use half of your cash cushion to buy that and you've still got all these income producing assets, great. But if you are going to drain a bunch of your assets to buy the house, that's I think you got to figure that in.
Yeah. And I think she should also think about her relationship, right? So she's she's
correct.
Not just in a relationship where someone is paying the mortgage or rent or whatever, and she's paying utilities and groceries, which, could add up to be very similarly them sharing the cost, but she's cohabitating, which means a lot of your expenses are split with someone, which can save you a lot of money. So I would, you can never guarantee a relationship. And so you do just want to think about that is like, what would my financial situation look like? Greg and I have both done this, right? I love Greg to death. I'm very happy with him. I don't anticipate anything, but we talked about that when we both retired of like, we want to make sure that like, if we were on our own, we'd both be okay. And I think that's something that she should think about also before pulling the plug, especially if she's in the sort of career where it would be hard for her to like re-enter the workforce when she's 50, right? And so just, you want to think about those aspects of the security. And she said she's been with him for 5 years. But you just want to think about that, right? Well, what if that got taken away? How would it change your expenses? Or could you pull back on things if you had to and that kind of stuff? But I think she's in a really good position personally. Yeah,
agreed. And then the only other thing that I'll mention here on this one, she mentioned FiCalc that she's been playing around with. I've been using Projection Lab with a number of people and some of my coaching clients, and I'm a huge fan of it. And so, Maggie, I've got a link I'll send you that we can post.
You have to pay for that, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay. It's
how much is it ballpark?
It's like $12 a month.
Oh, okay.
So it's very reasonable. I think the combination of Monarch Money and Projection Lab together is the ultimate combo.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, it's great for modeling all of this stuff.
Cool. Okay. Our next case study is Jennifer and Charlie. They are 35 and 38-year-olds with 2 small kids. They live up north in the middle somewhere. The US. Their annual household spending is, I quote, "not sure we keep track on the outside of our many envelopes," with a bunch of scared emoji faces. They do know their annual income.
She knows who she's talking to.
She does. Yeah. This one I love, by the way. This one is like super relatable based on so many people I talk to. Like, this is relatable.
One of the reasons why we chose these 2 case studies as our first 2 is because they were very different. And I think they are applicable to 2 very different types of audiences. And so we really like this. The second one is, this is I'm overwhelmed, right?
Yes. I don't know where to begin. So annual income, $190,000. Again, they really don't know what they're spending. Here's their net worth situation. There's a lot I'm going to go through here, but I'll try to do it quick. She has an IRA with about $30,000 in it, then a Roth IRA with about $45,000, so about $75,000 total. They've got a joint investment account with $85,000 in it. He's got an IRA with $10,000 in it, and then a Roth IRA with $13,000. And then they also have some like vested pensions, which are unclear, but we'll talk about. They own 2 homes, a rental, which I'm going to kind of
group some stuff together here, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of like, what's the word? I'm going to paraphrase some things here.
Yeah, definitely.
They own a rental. They've got about $123,000 equity on their rental. Then they have their primary home, and they've got about $143,000 equity in their main home. So they've got about $266,000 equity in their 2 homes. I'm really just going to count like the rental home because that's something they could get rid of. They own Charlie's car, a 2017 Ford Fusion. They have a monthly car payment on her car, about $450 a month for a 2023 Ford Explorer. They're trying to save to buy a used minivan. They don't have any other debt. We currently are able to pay off all of our expenses with what we bring home, and we put aside about $1,800 into our retirement per month. We have some hefty childcare expenses that make us feel like we are living paycheck to paycheck, but that's also because we have the auto retirement money coming out, so we never see it, don't factor it into our monthly income. We have about $6,000 in a cash fund for emergencies in our bank. We both put the full match amount into our work's retirement fund, but note this, I'm not sure how to log in and see mine. It's around a 4% match. His is around a 5% match. I've been with my company for 6 years. He just started a new job this year and was with a former school for 10 years and then taught for a year in Utah before that. So 11 years total into a retirement system invested at 100% of the one that he was at for 10 years. Then she said, now I'm rambling. That sounds like me. Okay. Here's like their questions and like more info from them. This is a lot, but I'm going to read it all.
I'd summarize this.
Okay. So they're both interested in getting better at their finances, tracking their finances, knowing where their money is going, how to save, how to invest, all those things. But it seems every time we get motivated to sit down and figure out some new system that doesn't include 15 envelopes and a plastic bin in our basement rafters, something comes up and we get overwhelmed and we honestly don't know where to start. We've tried a few different apps, Mint, blah, 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 blah. Then Monarch and our banks wouldn't load Connect. And then we just gave up. Sigh. Do we start learning about new investments, optimizing our rental property, buy another one? Do we even want to be landlords? We only got into this because we got money from my grandpa dying for the down payment on our new home, and we couldn't stomach giving up an insanely good interest rate on our old house. Okay, I'm going to kind of go, they did some renos, they blah, blah, blah. Okay, how do we start tracking expenses? Should we be doing credit cards with points? They have like so many questions. They're like, we don't really go on vacations because we're afraid to spend too much money on them, but we know we want to be able to create vacation memories with our kids as they get older. We don't really eat out that much, but maybe we do. We spend far too much on wine and ice cream. We have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and we both work with children in our day jobs. So many questions. Which one do we start with? Okay, so they're like her specific questions as she recapped them. That was kind of her like more info, which she sounds like me, so I can relate to all the context she shared. I kind of appreciate it.
I think you and her would be.
I think we would get along and we could enjoy some wine and ice cream together. I agree. But I appreciate it because I think that like rambling of like, oh my God, I don't know where to start. There's all these things. I know so many people like that. And I've had a number of discussions with coaching clients where most of the people that need coaching are in that position. If they already know what to do and they got all their crap organized, like they don't need coaching half the time. Okay. So then her specific questions were, where do we get started? What do we do when we hit setbacks in, quote, the getting started process? Where can we go for good information when we have questions about something like life insurance or what to do if a grandparent dies and leaves us money? And then we suddenly need a new roof. What's the place to get cash? Do we take out a loan? Do we sell off investments? Do we borrow money from a retirement account? I could keep going, but mainly where do we start? What little bits can we get solid on? And where do we go from there to gain full insight knowledge into our finances to feel confident about, for example, booking a family trip for some family memories with our adorable but exhausting babies? Okay, that was a lot.
Yep.
How do we get started? Where would you start? Like, where's your? I got a lot to say, but I'm rambly like her, so you should start.
The biggest thing I think in a situation like that is you can't bite off all of this at one shot, right? So start small and build up your financial acumen and the processes to put in place. So I think it starts with expense tracking and understanding what you're spending. She mentioned that she tried Monarch and she had a connection issue with her credit card. I'm such a believer in Monarch and tracking expenses. I would switch credit cards. If my credit card was not working correctly with Monarch, I would get a new credit card. So pretty much all the big major credit cards, Citi, Chase, Bank of America, they all work really, really well with Monarch because they've got millions of people using it. So if you don't have debt issues and credit card issues, I definitely recommend that people put all of their expenses on a single credit card to get some points that works well with Monarch. Step number one.
And that works well with your lifestyle. So I'm going to point you to an episode Andrew and I did where we did what's in our wallet. And we talked about like which credit cards we have and why. Yeah, put all your stuff on a credit card to earn points, to earn miles. And it depends which one based on like, we're in Atlanta and we like Delta. So I love a Delta card, but you might want Southwest or something else. And so figure that out for you. But yeah.
So make sure your credit card and your bank work really well with Monarch and get all of those transactions flowing correctly into Monarch, and then using Monarch to categorize your expenses and being able to understand where the money is coming in and where the money is going out. And then you can start to evaluate, well, can I go out to eat more? Or, putting those line items together and budgeting how you want to spend your money.
Yeah. And like, how do you feel about how much you're spending when you like, I love the comment of like, we don't really eat out that much, but maybe we do.
But
right?
maybe we do. Right.
You'll see, you might see like you're spending a couple $100 eating out a month, or you might see you're spending thousands of dollars and be shocked by that amount when you see the total. And yeah, I think you just killed two birds with one stone by saying like, fix your accounts. Yeah. They should really all link with Monarch. I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but like my comment on that would be, yeah, you need to track your expenses. If Monarch doesn't work for you, go to a manual spreadsheet. But that manual spreadsheet is probably going to be more annoying to you than just like a one-time dealing with the headache of getting some accounts set up. Sometimes there's something in Monarch where you just have to go like confirm your account or do something. And so just, go do those things. And Monarch has excellent customer service, so use them if you need it. But I think you just got to like start somewhere, right? And one of those things is tracking your expenses. It is incredibly important. To me, like, start to write out a to-do list. Like, you're clearly listening to this podcast, right? And so there's probably other ones you listen to too, but like, write out a list of all the things you need to do, even if it's overwhelming. Like you need to be able to log into your 401k accounts. I'll give you some examples of like a starter to-do list, but just start to write a list out. Slowly start chipping away at it. I don't know how you and your husband work and like what works for you, but like maybe give yourself a, once a week, we have to chip away at one thing on this list. We're not going to overwhelm ourselves. We're not going to do it all at once, but we're going to work on it together. Or maybe we divvy it up. We each get a task each week and just start. You don't have to do it all at once. And I also would say, try not to get overwhelmed with all the details and nuances. Like, just get the basics right. So what we were just talking about with Shayna as an example, like, when you hear something from Paula Pant and Paul Merriam, like, don't be like, oh, should I not have my stuff in a total market? Just put all your crap in a total market index fund and move on. Figure out how to log into your 401k account.
Right.
Make sure you're not in a target date fund, which isn't ideal. And we go into why in episode 76. So go listen to that if you want to hear it. And set it and forget it, right? Put it in a total market index fund in your 401k and move on, right? Do you need life insurance? Like, that might be, further out on your list, whatever it is. And so just start a list of all the things you need to do and then slowly work the list. And I think you'll build momentum as you start to do more of those things and feel good about it too.
All right. Should we hit a couple more of these specific questions? You want to take the rental property one?
Yeah. So the rental property one is funny. When I saw the way you said this of optimizing our rental property or to buy another one, do we even want to be landlords? Like, I don't think you want to be with a question like that. Right. And so to me, if you're overwhelmed by all this stuff, which by the way, no shame in that game, like I'm overwhelmed by stuff, right? Like, you got to simplify things. You have a 2 and a 4-year-old, like, you don't need to be building a rental property empire.
That's a very good point.
Unless that's what you want to do. But I don't think it's what you want to do when you're like, do we even want to be landlords? Like, you're asking yourself that because like there's pressures in society of that's a path for something, but like, it doesn't need to be your path.
I always love flipping the question when you're dealing with assets like this, if you wouldn't go out and buy the rental property today, you should probably sell it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now I said that same thing to you with Bitcoin and you were upset after Bitcoin went up.
No, I wasn't upset at you. I was upset at myself. Not you though.
But yeah, definitely from what she has said, it sounds like they kind of fell into this, and they've got some equity in the rental. I would definitely like to see a stronger emergency fund. She said that they've got 6,000 in an emergency
it's not a
fund.
great size fund, especially because I gather they're spending probably 150. I don't know if that income was pre or post tax, but
right, based
on the fact that they're living close to paycheck, they're probably spending 150K a year, and they've got 2 kids in daycare. So somewhere between 150 to 200,000 a year.
Yeah. So I think having a little bit stronger of an emergency fund would be good. Another thing I'll call out is I don't love the $450 car payment on the 2023 Ford Explorer. I would try and get that knocked out real fast, as overall I'm definitely not a fan of car payments.
Well, I also think I'm not sure who, they said they're trying to save for a used minivan, and I'm not sure if that's for her or for him, but if it's for her, which I'm just making an assumption it might be, because like, I don't know. I know a lot more guys that like don't want, I don't know. I'm not knocking minivans. They're very practical and they like really work. I love when my friend picks me up and her like doors slide open for me and stuff. Anyways, so I imagine like maybe they would sell that car, or actually they would sell that car and then get us. So maybe you can sell that car now and get a used minivan. I'm not sure what, but that 2023 Ford Explorer should be worth a good bit. And so I don't know, how much you need for that, but I agree. A car payment's not great, and it's probably not at a great interest rate either.
That's another good point. And then her comments about the retirement funds. I love the fact that they've automated this, that they are prioritizing their retirement funds, that it's automatically going in. They're getting the company match. definitely being able to log in is important. So I would definitely have that on the list to get that checked off. Make sure you know know how to get your 401k account. Make sure you've got your beneficiaries set in your 401k account. Know what your investments are and where all the money is going inside of there.
And I'm not sure, but I think at least one person in this relationship is a teacher. Well, they both work with kids. They might both be teachers. There's notoriously some like crazy setups in certain educators' 401k plans. And so I'd be careful that you're not in like, you might not have a choice based on some things I've heard, but make sure you're not in like a managed plan where you're paying extra fees. Like really look at that and see what you're signed up for, because you may not remember that when you first started working there, you signed up for something that had an incremental management fee. You don't want that. You want to put it in some version of a total market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. And that should be pretty easy to do once you get in there. And then I will add, like, because I know that even like me saying that might sound overwhelming. At some point, if you are so overwhelmed with how to get started and what to do, you might want to work with an hourly financial coach, right? There are one, and the purpose of this episode is not for like Andrew and I to do coaching services. We both happen to do some coaching and enjoy it, but we don't do a lot of it. We don't have time for a lot of it. But I have a client where they literally are like, sound pretty similar to this couple. They know what to do, but they don't have the time to do it. And they hadn't logged into it and they didn't know what fees they were getting charged and all these things. And they just want help. So I literally like sit there and do it for them and with them while I sit there. Like I'm not telling them what to do and then them going and doing it by themselves, which would be cheaper. They want me to sit there and like do it for them. And I'm like, that's fine, because they know they're never going to do it. And I'm like, look, you know yourself, that's great. So at some point, if you're just never going to do it, hire someone to help you, because this stuff is important. I just go listen to our episode about why we're not a big fan of fee-based financial planners. Make sure you hire somebody hourly. We have some resources in the show notes for that episode, but I would go listen to that episode, which is episode number 58.
And then another question, they've got 2 young kids, both of them are working. Term life insurance is super important in this situation. So always would ask them, do you have a good term life insurance policy?
Yeah, it sounds like they don't. So yes, I think their question was, do we need life insurance? Yes. Put that on your list, right? I'd put that higher up on your list because you have young kids and because your expenses outweigh, or like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you really want to make sure that the other spouse is taken care of and that your kids are taken care of if something happens. And at your age, especially if you're healthy, you can get a pretty decent rate for it. And Liz and I just did an episode, it was episode 80 on life insurance. So I would go listen to that.
And then the other thing always goes along with life insurance is having a will in place as well, especially when you've got 2 young kids. I was definitely a little late on doing that, but definitely getting the will, the estate plan in place and the term life insurance.
Yeah. And then, I'd say their final question was, where can we go for good information when we have questions about stuff like life insurance, et cetera? And I mean, I would say like, look, you're listening to a podcast, right? Like listen to podcasts. And you don't need to listen to one, like listen to a few and, average out what you're hearing. Google is a great resource. When I don't know something, like I go, literally type a question into Google or type a question into AI and get pointed to tons of resources. I like AI because they're really good at like summarizing stuff from lots of websites. Books, like one of Andrew's favorite books is The Simple Path to Wealth. Go read a book like that. You can get
my 2 recommended books, always The Simple Path to Wealth, The Psychology of Money.
Right. Yeah. They're
Morgan
both great.
Housel. Yep.
We'll put links in the show notes to both of those. But my point is, you can get so much of your answers, so many of your questions answered through free or very inexpensive resources. So actually, I'd say it's all free because you could go get those books at the local library. But worst case, you spend $20 on a book. And then, the final step, if you're just, like I said earlier, if you're just not going to do it yourself and you're just finding like, we are not getting started, we're too busy, whatever, like hire an hourly financial coach, because you spending a few $100, even up to a couple $1,000 at this point in your life, I think is foundational to put you on the right track for the next, 5, 10, 20 years, and to put your kids on the right track, because you need to start to think about saving for college and stuff like that. And so, and you guys are making decent incomes. You just really need to like get your expenses in check, and you'll be in a lot better position when your kids are out of daycare and things like that. If it makes you feel any better, I think the majority of people have trouble getting started, and they hit things like, oh, Monarch, my accounts aren't linking and this is annoying. And then they like get busy and move on to something else and don't come back to it. So I would, give yourself a little bit of grace that this is normal. You have 2 young kids, you're 2 working families, like that. It's a lot, right? You're dealing with a lot, and you're at a very busy phase of your life also. Just be kind to yourself and don't focus on forget the past and just try to work towards the future and write out that to-do list of things you need to do. You don't need to knock things off your to-do list. We're going to recap it for you. You don't need to buy another rental property. Just take that even out of your mindset. That's what I would do, at least. And I'm not even saying sell the current one. I'm just saying deal with that. And if you ever want to, you could sell it, but for now you can keep it. Figure out how to log into your 401k. Make sure you're invested in the right type of funds. Make sure you're not paying high fees for some reason. Shop some life insurance and get that worked out. Start tracking your expenses, right? Use Monarch. And if you don't want to use Monarch, do it manually. One of those is, you got to do one of those too. Get the right kind of credit card so you're earning points and miles on your expenses. I just think those are some of the foundational things that you brought up, and make that to-do list and just, put it up on the wall in your living room, put it up on your bathroom, somewhere where you and your partner see it every day, and aim to do better. And if you need a why, do it for your kids, right? Your kids are young. The, more of this you can kind of work out as they're young, the better everything's going to be, the better your marriage will be, because you'll just have this stuff worked out and everything in life will be easier. But just be patient and kind to yourself and try to take some positive steps forward. And if you have a setback, what's the song? Dust yourself off and try again. Just keep moving, just do your best. And you're already listening to financial podcasts. That's some good step in the right direction. I'm rambling like she was. And by the way, when I say you were rambling, Jennifer, I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that as we're sisters. We're the same person. So you should take it as a compliment.
All right. Last 2 things I had on this one.
Okay.
The kids are 2 and 4. That is likely the highest amount of childcare costs they will have if the 4-year-old is going to go into kindergarten next year. Hopefully that takes one daycare payment off the list.
Yeah.
And then hopefully only a couple more years for that second one. So
here's hoping their kids don't go to private school.
That is 100%.
Right? On that answer.
Yes.
Yes.
And hopefully, so the daycare costs hopefully will come down, and start thinking about how you would prioritize those additional, where are you going to take that money and where are you going to best utilize putting it, right? Can you then put that against the car payment and then knock the car payment out?
Yeah.
And so coming up with a good plan for that, so it just doesn't disappear into, hey, you're now living paycheck to paycheck, even though you've only got 1 kid in daycare.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because it will disappear if you don't do that proactively.
Yes.
That's lifestyle inflation. It's just, it'll be gone. You won't even know where it went.
And then she also asked about, should we, for unexpected expense, do we borrow money from our retirement account? That should always be the last possible option. Try not to ever do that. It can have a big impact long-term. So that's it. And thank you for writing in and sending us all the information.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys trusting us with your details, and we hope this has been helpful. We're definitely going to do another one of these in the future.
Are we going to send some stickers to both of these?
Oh, yeah. I should. I will email you guys and let you know. You'll hear before this comes out.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely send you a sticker and all that. Maybe a magnet too, I don't want to go crazy, but yeah. That's all I got, stickers and magnets. Okay, but we really appreciate you guys sharing your information with us. We hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you spending some time with us. This is how we spend our Friday nights. So we hope you're enjoying this podcast, whatever you're doing right now. If you have enjoyed this episode, you could give us a written review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. We really appreciate it.
We also encourage you to share this episode with a friend or family member to encourage ongoing discussions about money. You can also subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram. And remember, this was my idea. You can send all the hate mail directed to Andrew.
No, it's a joint thing. I had to say yes. So I love it when the co-hosts.
That's right. Maggie still runs the show.
Yeah. I'll take joint accountability if people don't like this. But yeah, you guys have an awesome day. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye.